Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me and thank you for your continued support. So the government had a vote today on the assisted dying bill, and it's a hugely controversial subject and an emotive subject, because, you know, during this debate we've heard lots of stories of good and bad experiences, lots of people whose final days and final hours were not very nice in terms of, you know, side effects and problems that they had. Lots of stories from families who, you know, whose loved ones wanted to end their lives early but couldn't for whatever reason. And I think it's a hugely difficult subject, and one that personally I don't have the answer to. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, you can put a good argument either way. You know, there are people who say that this bill, if it's passed, will lead to, you know, doctors playing God, or people being prematurely euthanized and things like this, and it's you know, open to abuse and things like this, which is relevant arguments. It's all relevant for me. You know, these are all things that could possibly happen. And yet you've got other people who are saying, well, this creates, you know, it gives people dignity, it gives people a dignified way out rather than having to suffer for their final hours. And again, I can completely understand that. You know, the arguments on both sides are compelling for me, and I really couldn't tell you one way or the other what my preference would be. But obviously I'd love to hear your ideas and your thoughts on this down in the comment section. Whether you've had personal experience of loved ones who have wanted an early way out and couldn't do so, or people that you think, you know, could have easily been coerced into something they didn't want to do, something like that. So, you know, it's a very difficult subject. The bill did go before the House today, and it was passed by 330 votes to 225. It was a free vote, so people could vote how they wanted to. Obviously Keir Starmer voted for it. Other MPs like Wes Streeting voted against it, and it was a narrow margin. You know, was it around 50 votes was the margin. So it's a very narrow margin, and it shows, I think, the split in opinion between not only different parties but people in general. So I think it's a hugely difficult situation. It's obviously, now that's not the end of it. It's going to go for further debates and lots of other processes that it will go through before it even gets to anywhere near becoming law, which is also all good. You know, but the due process needs to be done in this situation. I did read articles from people who have expressed concern about whether the NHS in its current state is able to cope with something like this. You know, whether there will be sufficient checks and balances in place to enable it to be done effectively, you know, and not open to abuse. And I just think to myself that it's one of those things where, you know, apparently it's going to be people who have got 6 months or less to live. Apparently it's going to be something that's going to be very difficult to do. You know, there's going to be lots of checks and balances that they want to put in to try and make this as safe as possible. But of course, as with anything, it is open to abuse, and while there are always checks and balances and there are always safeguards in place, there are equally people out there who can get around them. So it's a very difficult situation, and if I was in that situation myself, I really don't know how I would feel about it. But yeah, let me know down in the comment section what you think about, firstly, the fact that the vote was passed by 330 to 275. Let me know about that, and also your feelings. I know that you have in a previous video that I did, and I really do appreciate your honesty in those. Yeah, just let me know how you think about it now. Do you agree with what I've been reading, that the NHS in its current situation just isn't able to cope, or wouldn't be able to cope with something as complicated as this? Or do you think that, regardless of the state of the NHS, that this is something hugely important which needs to be put in place? Obviously, the floor is now yours. Let me know what you think down in the comment section as always, and I will see you next time.